So here we are. We're heading for Wembley in West London VR race 4.9 preview. Horsenden Hills and Thrills. Horsenden Hills and Thrills has 3 laps. So you're going to have to go up Robin Hood's Way and Horsenden Hill twice in each lap. So that's 6 climbs effectively in this one. And we let your legs loosen up a little bit because we're starting at the top and going downwards, and which is not the way anybody wants their career to go, but actually works quite nicely in a cycle race where we can loosen up. As you can see on this particular day, it had rained overnight before I came out in the morning. The weather was in the process of clearing up. You can see a little bit of hint of blue sky just over the houses on the right, and the black clouds, the last of the rain clouds just still lingering ahead as we slightly rise, but as I say, this largely we're starting at the top, so despite the fact that this is a very gentle climb here, it's nothing like you're going to encounter later on in the lap. So this commentary is only going to cover 1 lap because otherwise I'll just be repeating myself 3 times. Now essentially what we do is a circle around what is, for reasons I don't really know, some sort of preserved greenery in West London. And I think London as a city generally has had this policy of preserving green space wherever it can. So Horsenden Hill itself is a preserved bit of sort of green, a bit of a green oasis in and around, I suppose, between Greenford and Wembley, Perivale and Alperton and places like that. Stopping at the traffic light, the little sign just to the left of the traffic light is a list of what's coming up at Wembley Stadium, just so that you can avoid the traffic. And I see that a couple of weeks after this, there's something on at Wembley, so I assume it must be international football, and certainly my domestic team are not playing that weekend, so I suspect England have got a game of some sorts coming up. Got a little bit of spray here. I hope it doesn't offend the lens too much, but I could feel the spray coming up on my legs as I went down this hill. But this is, it's not much of a descent, but it's enough to get some speed up. So as I say, you started at the top with a bit of a false flat. This is now a big descent down towards Alperton, where we will turn right. It'll be flat along there as we follow the path effectively of the Grand Union Canal, going from east to west, west to east, depending on whether you're going to London or Birmingham. A gentle rise here. I mean, this is not something that's going to sort of really stand out in the race, I think. So save your powder for the 2 climbs at the end of the lap, and remember that you'll be doing those at the end of each lap. And just to repeat myself, it's 3 laps, so that's 6 climbs in this one, and they should be decisive. I think it'd be enough to break the field up during the race, and I think it'll be decisive at the end. When you do get to the finish, the last uphill I think is going to be a strain, but you turn right as soon as you hit the top of the hill, and you probably have 400 or 500 meters, I'm guessing, of sprint to the finish. So here we are heading for Alperton. It's a gentle climb, but nothing like an Alp, and to make up for the lack of height on the hills, they seem to be putting up taller buildings than hitherto have occupied Alperton. But we won't go there. We're going to go right and stay fairly flat, as I say, following broadly the trajectory of the Grand Union Canal, although I don't think you're going to see it in the videos as we just sort of rumble through these sort of 1930 London expansion sort of areas, with industrial sites on our left and houses on our right. Might be slightly exotic if you don't come from the UK, but for those of us in the UK, you could probably see that landscape in any city of your choice. Now, this is going to be sort of fairly unremarkable, I suppose, going along here, because it's going to be the same old thing: houses, shops, wet road, and you'll notice we've now got special effects in the bottom right of the screen. We went to great expense to get that. And if you don't believe me, of course, we've got some of that spray on the lens, which doesn't seem to want to go away. Pretend it's a special effect, and this is a truly professional video. So you can see, just going through those sort of little local convenience store shops that you get in these sorts of areas, all shut up because it's Sunday morning when I did the recording. And fairly unremarkable stuff, as I say. Everybody's garden now converted into a car park because you can't park on the road. More shops and so on and so forth. A nice dry spot there because something must have been parked there, or maybe it's under a tree. And yep, this is what West London, in fact, I say West London looks like. I think in the 1930s they built around the whole rim of London, so I think you'll find streets that look exactly like this, north, west, south and east of London. And if I was to sit there and tell you this was East London Essex borders, I think you'd probably believe me. One notable thing though, just along here we get Art Deco buildings from the 1920s. So just maybe Greenford and Perivale were trying to emulate Miami Beach. So never mind travelling out to Miami, you can get a bit of Art Deco here in West London. In fact, to be honest, we did have two of the best Art Deco buildings around, actually, with the Hoover building and the Firestone one. But the Firestone one was knocked down. Developers knocked it down the night before the preservation order was going to be put on it, and they beat I think they did it overnight. So they brought in the bulldozers overnight. To much outcry at the time, but I suspect younger generations are oblivious of it. So a little bit of a gentle incline here, but again, as I say, this is the flat bit really. So this is just false flat. Whatever the camera tells you, you won't particularly be straining at the leash to get up this one. Now, eventually, when we get to the end of this sort of fairly unremarkable straight road, we're going to do a right turn. You can see the end of the road coming up now. Now, as soon as we do this right turn, so just remember when you're on RGT, the scenery will be completely different, of course. When we do this right turn, you're almost immediately into Horsenden Hill. And you can see the greenery that I'm talking about. There's lots of it, and it's behind the buildings that we've been seeing on our right. But now we're actually going to go through the middle of this sort of preserved green area, and we're hitting Horsenden Hill here. Now, the first thing we do, we have to go up, and this, it looks like it's a bridge, which it is, because it's a bridge that goes over the Grand Union Canal. And we slow down for the traffic lights, but they go green. So we get over the bridge, but you don't go down on the other side because there's a hill here anyway. Or if you do go down, it's not remarkable. You can see pretty much going flat before we start climbing again and going up the hill. So the bridge just sort of just brings forward where you would start the hill. So treat that right turn as the start of the climb. Now we're going up the climb, and if I could have told you that the roads that we've been through could have passed from almost anywhere in London and probably a few other cities around the UK at all, if I told you this was in the middle of the countryside, you'd probably believe me, given the view you've got here. And it's quite remarkable that a hill and a road like this can be sitting here in the middle of West London, because it really does look and feel out of place. But anyway, this is Horsenden Hill climb, the first of two climbs you're going to do here. It's not quite the steepest side of Horsenden Hill, I believe. I think they're fairly similar either side of it. We're going to go down the other side. But you're going to have to drag up this one, probably half a kilometre. The gradient's not going to really be, it's not going to be ridiculous, as you can see from the pictures. But there's enough of it, I think, just to sort of launch attacks on this one. If you don't launch an attack on this one, the second one is probably even better to do an attack on. Now we're heading towards the top of Horsenden Hill, so we'll immediately go down before going up the Robin Hood climb, which is again after a sharp right turn. So the right turns are your markers for when you're about to sort of go up a climb. So you can see this is leveling out now as we hit the top of Horsenden Hill and start going downwards. As we go downwards, we come back into civilization, and you can see the side of the camera here that this is this green space that's been preserved in West London. I'm sure as a deliberate policy. But here we are, back into civilization, starting with a pub. And how more civilized can you be than going to the pub? It's when you leave the pub that you become a bit uncivilized, in my experience. But here we are. Anyway, we're going to do a right turn, and that is going to be the Robin Hood climb. And here we go. Now you should be able to see it. There you are. You can see what you're about to go up at the end of the road there. It goes up sharp, and when you get to the top of this road, it's not the end of the climb. We turn left and carry on going. There's a slight respite when you turn left, in the sense that the gradient's not quite as hard, but then it does ramp up on the last little stages. So you can see now we're beginning this climb, and you can still see the gradient is going to get steeper. The view tells you that, and I always judge when I'm looking at these camera shots. If you look at the walls outside the houses or the bottom of the house, you can probably get a rough idea of the gradient, because they build the walls and the houses absolutely dead level, and therefore they're slightly out of kilter in the street. And you can see that we're going to turn left, but you can see that it's still climbing because you can see the angle there. As I say, it's not quite as steep. That little left turn gives you a slight bit of respite, but it's not over because it's going to ramp up again. You can see a white van further up, and you can see visibly that the gradient is going up a little bit further up there. So you can see that green space still on the left, but we've got houses on the right, and we're going to move into more of a sort of built up area just after this little ramp. So here we are, it really ramps up here, and then we hit a mini roundabout at the top. The mini roundabout at the top, we can see that car going across it, will obviously just look like a right hand bend on the RGT race on the night. Once you turn that right hand bend, this is, I'm not going to suggest you start sprinting here, but you're probably into the last 500 meters or so, and you want to sort of be watching around for who's doing what, not letting anybody get off the front, maybe positioning yourself rather slyly on somebody's wheel, that sort of thing, because it is dead flat here all the way to the finishing line. The finishing line, you might have noticed when we started, is, for the sake of this video, actually a set of traffic lights at a pedestrian crossing. So believe it or not, for this video, for the first time ever, I think, there will be a finishing line, albeit that it's actually a white line for the pedestrian crossing. So we go past these bus stops, and straight after the bus stops you can just see the pedestrian crossing. That's your finishing line coming up now, where the traffic lights are over the white line, and that's your lot. See you on the race.